Hello, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Subscription Scaled. I'm your host, Nick Frederick. With me today is Roi Ben Daniel, who is the founder and CEO of Received. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick.
Awesome
Great
to
be
have
here,
you.
and thanks for having me. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time. Let's start at the beginning here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and how you came to start Received.
Yeah, sure. By trade, I'm actually an accountant and a lawyer. I studied on accounting more than a decade ago in Tel Aviv University. I did my master's with the University of Chicago, a pretty finance focused school. And to my dad's disappointment, I didn't take neither of those routes. And I built my career in fintech. Obviously, fintech and my 85-year-old dad, I really don't connect. But most of my career I spent understanding and building in payments and fintech. I spent 7 years at Visa, set up the partnerships team in Tel Aviv. These were the early days where, and not so long ago, but in 2014, Visa and MasterCard didn't really work with fintechs. It seems like ancient history today, but they knew how to work with the traditional finance institutions, mainly banks, issuers, acquirers, anything from commercial frameworks to compliance, regulation. All of that was not really built for fintech. And then fintech beat the networks in the ass, if I can say this on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
They did. Taking market share, building new payment channels, and really transforming the market from infrastructure all the way to B2C and B2B applications. And Visa understood it has to work with fintech. So I was part of a team. You'll be surprised how flat of an organization Visa is, but I was part of a team that both did strategy for that, how to take compliance commercial regulation and turn that into something that the fintech can work with, as well as actually set up the commercial team in Tel Aviv. We grew the activity from non-existent basically to tens of millions of dollars in revenue. And I also had a chance to be part of Visa Ventures for a while, with a couple of investments. So that's kind of my background within Visa. At the time at Visa, I was really in love with B2B payments. I call it the unfulfilled prophecy, because every executive would talk about the B2B payments, but not really budge. And I had my theories on why that is. And the reason is that I think that in B2B payments, really the opportunity is in the process. It's in the software around the payment and not the payment itself. For the most part, I think corporate spend is a great case study for that. And I kind of everything in life seems to find its serendipitous way. My accounting background, as well as my payments background and fintech background, I coincidentally spoke with CFOs of the companies we're working with. Everything kind of led me into the back office of accounting and billing and revenue. And that kind of the origin story of Received. At Received, what we do, in short, we solve complex billing in a bit more elaborate manner. We think that the CFO office will have verticalized solutions in some categories. One of the most prominent categories for verticalization is billing and quote to cash. And the reason is that the products and services that you sell really mandate that the processes that you need, B2C and B2B and inventory, non-inventory, marketplace and straight up sell beds. All those really need different billing and a rev rec. And we think that when you look at the vertical of B2B software, specifically B2B sales led software, which is a pretty big vertical, it's really underserved. You can't force feed a subscription solution to a sales-led organization. Sales-led means, complex pricing and bespoke contracts and a playbook, which is much more complex and needs a surgical accuracy than subscription. Really, a contract and a subscription is not really a contract. It's a cohort. It's, you're looking at um, a ton of same contracts all together. And in sales led, you're looking at negotiation
Yeah.
so that's what's missing in the market, and that's what really what we solve for.
How are or traditionally, how did organizations solve for this? Was it custom built systems? Was it a lot of spreadsheets, or what are you guys replacing your software with?
Yeah, there's a huge variance. I would say that the three main buckets are you got your in-house solutions. That's definitely a big bucket where customers say the market is not meeting me where I am in terms of complexity and need. So there's no point in even checking other solutions. So we see a bunch of that. And that, the cost, direct costs and opportunity costs there it's huge. It's inferior solutions with costs that tend to balloon as you grow. The second bucket is definitely in earlier stages. You see a lot of manual work, which is fine until a point. But then if you continue with that again, the cost balloon with more personnel, with more team members that you need to bring in. And the third bucket that we see is again force feeding. I call it subscription management solutions into B2B sales led use cases. And there's a ton of frustration that we see there. And actually, a big part of our pipeline is customers that want and and leave those solutions behind and come to something that's more specific
Yeah.
to their needs.
For those that aren't as familiar with B2B billing, can you kind of give us at least a high level view of what separates B2B billing in some of those complex scenarios versus, the more traditional direct to consumer billing?
Yeah, I would say the first principle of it, or to make it really, really simple, it's the negotiation.
Okay.
It's the conversation. And Netflix doesn't have a conversation with any of its customers, right?
Right.
You have a conversation with a screen. You don't have a lot of choices. Above a certain ACV, um, above, I don't know, let's say 5K ACV, um, all those book a demo and talk to us. If you that's a good, that's a good. If you don't see pricing on the website,
Okay.
that's a conversation, right? And a
Okay.
conversation is a conversation. People can take it anywhere. Yeah, that's kind of the backbone of the reason, the justification for the CPQ industry, and that's the justification for our existence.
Okay. I've certainly, and probably a lot of people have, been on websites that have like the essentials or the basic intro plan, maybe an upgrade plan, and then call for quote, right? If you're enterprise or want all of the features and things like that. So there's a lot of B2B companies out there that are trying to straddle both of those worlds. Are you a good fit for those types of situations?
Yeah, I would say that, and actually I think pricing is getting much more complex. OpenView talks about really what you didn't mention usage, but I'm going to mention usage.
Yeah.
Over 60% of companies today either adopted or adopting usage pricing. A lot of times, a price point on the website will just be a marketing vehicle to send a message, to send, this is, we start here. Our conversation starts here at our most basic product. But with those type of, unless you're a PLG and you really do enable a self-serve, there's going to be a negotiation. So if I see a website when I look at potential customers, if I see a website with mostly obscure pricing, that tells me that it's self-led. Does that answer your question?
It does, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up usage because that's, a trend that we're certainly seeing. Do you see that 60% going up and more going to this usage-based model, or trying to get more towards fixed pricing, or just whatever the situation dictates?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because there's two contradicting pressures that we see customers experiencing at the moment. One is from their investors, and we work with software companies, so mostly they will have, their venture back. So one is from investors, and the other one is from customers. So investors say, I want that subscription stability, right? In a down
Mhm.
market, usage really takes a hit because
Mhm.
people buy less products and services, and the real market is slowing down. That means usage will slow down because usage
Yeah.
is product and service, the usage of products and services, right? So
Mhm.
recession means usage takes a hit. And then, for companies that are really usage heavy, their VCs tell them, okay, light up that subscription piece because you got to have more stability in your revenue. The customers actually are putting the opposite pressure because they
Yes.
say, you know what, that 30K ACV, uh, that's no good anymore. Switch me to usage. So companies that haven't had any usage experience, any usage in their product, are now switching to usage. What I'm trying to say is that there's no winner here. There's not like usage versus subscription. I think the next phase of the CFO office and companies in general is just having the capability to light up any pricing model uh, that you may wanna and make sense at that point in time.
Do you really think it has to be an either or
No,
decision? I mean, are there hybrid models where you can charge like some base and then usage on top of it?
yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, we see that all the time. I mean, let's take. I really like the example of services because I think software companies, because of the heavy focus on the software element, have traditionally kind of neglected services. And services is always going to be there. It's always going to be there, whether it's your CS, whether it's your integration, whatever. Sometimes companies just don't charge for it. And then when they do, a lot of times they undercharge for it. Right. So there is a tip, for example, that I read. Someone tweeted, I'm sorry, I'm not giving due credit. I just don't remember, but someone gave a tip of how can you turn services into recurring, package it up, and make services packages. Some companies that we speak with, they do services. I use a service, right?
Mhm.
Quoted price per hour, and then actually some companies also have tiers and overages
Yeah.
for the services.
Mhm.
So I think companies will just get smarter about their pricing and really reflect their value that they bring to market in their revenue and cash flow because now they don't have a choice, right?
Right. Sticking on the topic of pricing, I think one of the fears, maybe not so much for enterprise, but certainly for small and medium-sized businesses, is that when it comes to custom pricing, like you get this quote, where do I benchmark this? Like, number one, am I getting a good deal? And then even from the service provider's perspective, like, I know they come up with playbook, but where do you start? You don't want to price yourself out of deals, but you certainly can. So, what do you think is the right approach to custom pricing?
Yeah, the annoying answer is it depends because the problem you have, you kind of mm, pointed at that direction. The problem you have is private information. There is no public information,
Right.
right? B2C and self-serve is really easy to benchmark. Um, and sales-led, you gotta have BI. You gotta do the hard work to get that fat contract. You gotta do the hard work, right?
Mm.
So I think, you said customer interviews is a huge part of it. Doing BI and understanding your competitor's position is another part. And also a lot of times actually benchmark is not really, it's a part of the puzzle and not the whole story. I mean, A lot of the times it's how you communicate your value to the customers and how you position your product and customer segments, like how you do price. I don't like the word price discrimination. So price differentiation, right? I think we're going to see more of that in the short term, because in a bull market, when everything is about growth, you got just everything is about growth. That's exactly the
Yeah.
thing. And people just, speed is of the essence and scale is of the essence. And those unit economics get pushed aside. And I think we're going to see companies getting much smarter. I'll just there's another thought. What the interesting thing is, and also to add to that, why companies are going to get smarter is that technology has enabled release of speedier release of products,
Yeah.
and also the push of such a huge amount of money into the market meant a huge amount of products and services into the market, which meant more competitive categories, which means you got to price in a smarter way, and you just got to be much more sharper about everything that you do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably obvious and goes without saying, but a lot of the time, the problem is comparing apples to apples, right? Especially when it comes to, okay, all of these features available, you want 5 out of 10 or something like that. The next customer comes along, needs them all, or maybe only needs a couple. But yet these guys might be talking, they might be posting, online in different places. So when it comes to these customer conversations, do you feel like they really need to be value driven conversations? What this software, this whatever I'm delivering to you is actually going to do for you and your organization, whether that's saving money, driving incremental revenue or things like that. Is that where you really think they should focus?
I think so, and the thing you alluded to is how to. No one likes to feel like they got a bad bargain, right? They
Right.
got a bad
Right.
deal, right?
Yep.
So I think that's where having a pricing policy where you have these ranges that make sense to certain type of customers to make them reasonable, not to make them 200%, but 20%. Um, and you know what? Also, the other part of it is that I think people get it, right? I think, s- CFO buyers on a deal are also part of an organization which is a seller of another thing. They're not stupid. They know how things work, and they know that, obviously sometimes small organizations are going to get, you know, um, generally speaking, the same software as a big organization, but they're going to pay a starter price. I think that's just the ways of the jungle, and I think that's okay. And I haven't heard any stories or anything that will prove that this is mm, that people don't recognize that. If that makes
As you were talking, I'm reminded of a post on LinkedIn that I saw this week. I was curious
sense.
to get your opinion on David Heinemeier Hansen, one of the founders of 37 Signals. They have been online for a while talking about how they're taking all of their infrastructure off of the cloud, buying servers, having them hosted for them, but then putting to basically bringing all of their infrastructure off the cloud and providing their software on those servers. This week, he put out an article about let's bring back the days of I buy software once, I own that software forever, it's mine, might pay maintenance or something like that, but kind of going back to that old model. And what was interesting about it, not just his perspective, was all of the comments below it from people kind of mostly agreeing with him, although I think a lot of people didn't and probably just didn't post there. But I'm curious what your thoughts would be on it.
Well, I know the post that you talk about. I don't have his experience, but I don't know. I'm not. My intuition says no. I'm not seeing that. Like, um, that has so much more wrapped up into it. Buying a software, and then what? Like now you're gonna have a team that an extended IT team that manages your servers and buys software patches that they need to they need to update. Like how is that gonna work? And the cloud was a liberating thing. I think that where it comes from, and maybe where it hit the chord with the people, is that um, there is SaaS fatigue in the
Yep.
market.
Yeah.
There's SaaS fatigue again because there's two things that play here. One is companies grew, so they spent like crazy on SaaS, so that's gonna relax. And then also there was a SaaS flush of the market. So, there's gonna be a shed of some solutions. Companies are gonna get much smarter about their SaaS spend. And also, by the way, I see a ton of consolidation. Like the flush of money into the market brought point solutions that are now consolidating. You see that in corporate spend, where now Mesh um, is expanding into travel management, as well as Ramp going into travel management. You see that in sales engagement, where we're the biggest ambassadors of Apollo. We use Apollo for sales engagement. And
Hmm.
what's happening in that piece of software, like the data, the email outreach, the LinkedIn automation, all that stuff, used to be like 5 pieces of software. So I think we're gonna see just people being much smarter about SaaS spend, and maybe the animosity towards
Yeah.
SaaS spend is gonna cool off. That's what.
Yeah. I think a good example of that consolidation is actually with Shopify. So obviously started out as, the e-commerce hub that it was, but their latest filing is that more than 2/3 of their revenue is actually payments.
Mm-hmm.
So once they started integrating payments into their software, which is happening everywhere, everybody wants to add payments at least into their software, but are also adding in, we've got open banking now, finance, workforce management, all of these things that are being consolidated together. You're getting more from a single source of software. So I think that obviously supports your point of I don't need as much software as I used to. But what does that mean for the industry as a whole? Should you kind of expect that if you build something and solve a niche that ultimately to grow, you're going to have to sell off potentially or integrate it with something else?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that no one really wants that. The responsibilities that that come with managing your own software. I mean, payment is a great example. What now? If I what happened? You know how does buying payment infrastructure look like? Does that come with the compliance and regulation? Do people really want that? There's the as a service again, the as a service model, I think, really democratized building solution and bring solutions into the market. So
Yep.
again, I'm on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, well, I do think while you're seeing SaaS software that's has a lot more feature functionality into it because it's integrating multiple things together. They've
Mhm.
also become a little bit less specialized, right? Because a lot of these companies that have integrated payments into their software offering and offering that to their clients actually don't really know anything about payments. We live and breathe that all the time. You spend
Mhm.
a bunch of time at Visa. We know how that works. But the further you get away from by consolidating, the less people actually understand. Um, and so there's kind of those trade-offs there, I guess. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that.
what do you think about obviously Chat GPT, AI, news headlines, a lot of discussion at least around that and its role in the future. But what do you think that means to the CFO in the future?
I think it's gonna be an enabler. I don't think it's gonna replace anyone anytime soon. Um, I similar to I just get squeamish with the buzzwords and hype. I didn't really like the conversation around blockchain or Web3, and I don't really like the conversation around AI because it tends to be a bit stupid at times. I think use cases is the way to go, and just take baby steps and understand where the software actually helps you.
Mhm.
I think AI is gonna revolutionize revolutionize data classification. It may seem as something narrow, but that's huge. I mean, for reconciliation, data integrity, I think that's gonna play a huge part in in software. So it's for the CFO. I mean, before we talk about AI, making you breakfast and putting you to sleep, let's talk about how manual it still is to reconcile invoices, right? So
Yeah.
if AI is gonna do that, whoa, that's huge, right?
Hmm.
If it can correct data and say, oh, that piece of invoice, although the the product, the data doesn't really match your data. I know the invoice belongs to this payment. That's huge. I don't like lazy use cases where you type in something free text and it brings you a graph. Okay, I can make that graph myself. It's 3 clicks away. I think that's
Hmm.
kind of lazy. And yeah, I don't really think that AI is there to replace humans, generally speaking. So what I mean by that is that for simple questions, AI might be great, like your product support on a website. That's good. But when we're talking about customer support, like for example, in our world, when you think about collection and dunning and chasing customers, in big ticket like invoices of thousands of dollars. Oh my God, that's such a delicate process where you don't want to hurt your customer and you want to keep them, and you
Yeah.
need a human. Sometimes it's a specific thing, sometimes it goes to the CEO, sometimes it goes to CFO, it's such a
Right.
delicate thing that, you can't have AI replace. So I think near term data classification, probably some support, basic support, and then we'll see. Well, what do you think? I mean, we kind of see the same thing. So happy to hear your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I think that's spot on, honestly. I think some of the repetitive tasks that we can trust machines to at least sort the data for us and present it to us that we can go, yep, that looks good. Yep, I accept all of those changes. Let's move on to the next task. I think it can make us hugely more efficient, but I don't see it replacing people either. I mean, there's just this. I think that's a good example right there when you're talking about maybe a $50,000 invoice and you're like, hey, we're past due here. What's going on? You don't want an automated response, AI response from somebody's receivables platform. You want to talk to a human that's like, yep, we got it. Sorry. Pending somebody's approval, they're on vacation. That's really what you're looking for. So I totally agree with you there.
Yeah, and I know also we see that the thing about AI that it's trained on data, and it's trained on shitty data, and the reason why the data is shitty is because people are shitty, right? I don't want this to
The way to
be like
say it.
I don't want this to be the soundbite from the podcast. What I mean by
We'll
that
use
is,
that as the quote block. Humans are
I
shitty,
mean,
data shitty. Got it. Yep.
online sometimes brings the worst of people, right? And there's good examples of ChatGPT and stuff like that, and Bard saying awful stuff because some people on Twitter and online are awful, and some are good, whatever. And the good ones actually turn shitty when they're on Twitter, right? So it's easily manipulated. The data is shitty. It's contradicting itself in many points in time. So the level where they can statistically predict the next words and make whole sentences. Oh my God, I'm not a technologist, but that's amazingly impressive. But okay. So now what? I'm not sure that I know the now what, right?
Yep. Well, now that we've rolled out AI as completely changing the finance industry all over again, what other trends do you see happening, or how this might look different in the next few years, or even beyond?
Yeah, I think there's two. The biggest trends I see now in software and the CFO office are again kind of contradicting, but they sync together in harmony in an interesting way. One is verticalization. I think what's going to happen in vertical solutions, and I look at your website. That's you hit use cases. You bringing the extra mile for specific industries that, probably generic software just doesn't cut it for them. So I think we're with this bull market, we're past the platform play, right? So the platform play, like in our world, that means ERP, accounting, CRM. That's going to be a platform because that's generic. But
Mhm.
we're going to see much more verticalized solutions in many categories. And again, I live within my people and with specifically within quote to cash and AR and billing, because the products and services are different by nature. They manage
Yep.
different processes. We're going to see much more vertical plays. At the same time, the other trend that I see and we touched upon is consolidation. So again, within our category, I think buyers have much less tolerance for getting my usage software from one provider and my billing automation for another provider and my RevRec from a third provider. They want everything in one place, and I think that's where we're gonna go. So within vertical categories, we're gonna see expansion of solutions, and the other part of which is happening is competitive pressures, right? There's again many companies in the market,
Yep.
and the product roadmap for our product competition just gets more intense.
Yeah. I was kind of trying to make this point earlier, but I think it's interesting. Those two things can at times be opposed to each other because I've experienced it, and I've seen it happen with different companies where through consolidation, they might go out and buy somebody complements what they do well. And then over time, they really are focused on the core business and stop investing in that company. And so their vertical specialization made them great for so many years, gets lost. And all of a sudden now that software is way behind and potentially obsolete. Now I know that creates an opportunity for some new player to pop up with a vertical specialization and kind of solve whatever new needs there are there. But then, that one might get absorbed. So it's a bit cyclical there, or it could be, I
And Nick, it's a circle of life.
think. And that's why we'll still, all of us in SaaS and IT will have jobs for decades to come, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Solutions get old, people get fixated. Uh, um, Google, it's not really what you said, but it's also about the DNA of companies and market leaders. Once you hit that cash cow, you guard your castle. And no one thought Google is gonna be with so much politics and so much, pretty much stagnant. I think, when I speak with the friends that work at Google, it's like, okay, sometimes it sounds like they work at a bank, right? So I think
Hmm.
it's just the fate of most
Yeah.
companies as they grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd be curious since you brought it up, your perspective on Visa. I mean, there's a lot of opinions out there about what that company has become and that it is the golden goose, but some of the, more recent decisions they've made and the increase in fees and things like they could be shooting themselves in the foot.
Mhm.
Do you have a thought on kind of that direction and for all of the major card networks, kind of what the outlook is for them?
Oh wow, that's there's a lot to unpack there. Listen, an ambassador of Visa. When people, ask me today, first of all, to work in a network is an endless learning experience because payments is such a wide uh,
Yeah.
and deep subject matter, and so much actually people don't realize enough that it's very much localized. Like payments in Brazil don't look like nothing like payments in the US or nothing like payments in Germany. Um, it's a great space to be at, and at Visa, actually, I think it's an organization that's for its size and market position, it is pretty nimble. It knows how to innovate. It brings new product to market. I think people don't give enough credit for the networks, Visa and Mastercard API. When we talk about corporate spend, all of
Mhm.
that is Visa and Mastercard API. Nothing of those card controls were created by Mesh and and Paym and Ramp and Brex, and it's APIs, right?
Yeah.
So that's the good stuff, and to build what Visa built takes time. Like every time I hear about displacement of Visa, it's like it took 50 years to build a technology and more than that to build a two-sided network. Good luck with onboarding 3,000 banks and
Right.
eight 17,000 issuers and 3,000 acquirers. Like, okay, that takes a decade. Um, on the other hand, I think there is also not enough competition. And also I think, um, you know, uh, you know, I think that it's going to be really hard to compete with the networks, and you're going to need a lot of capital to really bring in a third player. I think a third player is needed. I think it's really two players globally, and I think it will be good for the market, for the industry, for technology. For third player will come in, but oh my god, it will take 15 years to build that network, I think.
Yeah. What do you think? Not to ask too broad of a question here, but digital payments, especially for cross border payments, not necessarily crypto, though it could be. But what do you see the future there being?
That's a good question. I think that I'll kind of evade the question and talk about a different angle, just because I don't know how to answer that question. And
That's
the
okay.
reason why the reason is I think that fintech is an industry with an identity crisis. I think that we've passed phase one of many opportunities and business cases like neobanks, neo insurers, lending, stuff like that. Some of that thinking and use cases and has failed us. Some of the opportunities that were there before, that's no longer, you look at payment infrastructure. Okay, now there's new entrants, new way of doing things, new technology. I don't think that another banking as a service or another smart card issuer
Yeah.
technology will make a difference, right? I think, okay, the dust settles and we're going to see what happens with payments next. I'm not sure what the future holds for fintech. To be honest, I think the dust needs to settle. We're gonna see some winners. We're gonna see some losers shutting down, and then we'll see. I think currently things are pretty digitized. Bringing stuff from. I don't believe in last inch improvements. Like we're okay, just where the payment needs to go immediately and not in business P2B payment needs to go immediately and not in 2 days.
Hmm.
Sometimes a 2 day lag is okay. You know
It's
what I
okay.
mean? Not everything needs to be
Hmm.
immediate and at our fingertips.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered a follow up question about payments I was going to ask there, which was the Fed now and real time payments, particularly as it relates to corporate payments. Are those really going to make a difference?
I don't know, Nick. I don't know. I'll give you the reason I don't know is that open banking, for example. Uh, I'll say something, maybe a different soundbite to overcome that people are shitty soundbite. I think that open banking in Europe has been, or PSD2, it's been a major flop. The reason it's been a major flop is that no real business grew out of it. Oh, people were talking about displacing the networks and all these new use cases and stuff like that. None of that happened. Of course, there are some incremental improvements and stuff like that, but the question we need to ask ourselves is who's benefiting, what's the use case, and where are the leapfrogs? And the incentives of different parties to really switch over to new technology or to new use cases. I don't know. I'm just saying the payments and the payment world is so complex and so unexpected that I think it's anyone's guess. I'm sorry, it's such an annoying answer. I know,
No, it's actually
but
not. And I kind of give the same answer when I get questions like that, to be honest, because there's some trends that, we thought would play out differently than they did. And, kind of here we are. So yeah, you can get a guess from somebody, but that's all it's ever going to be is kind of a guess. We'll see how
Yeah.
this all plays out. Um, well, Roy, this has been a fun conversation. I know we've covered a heck of a lot of ground today and a lot of different topics, but if any of the listeners have questions about what we talked about or want to learn more about Receive, where are the best places for them to go?
Yeah. So you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm Roi Ben Daniel. You can look us up on LinkedIn as well. We're Received. Our URL is Received AI. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Nick. I had such a nice time speaking with you today.
Yeah, no, the pleasure was mine. Really
Yeah,
appreciate all of the background and everything that you shared today. Appreciate the time and best of luck to you guys.
thank you so much.